My name is Alison Donnelly and I work in the Centre for the Environment in Trinity College, Dublin. And I want to talk to you today about phenology. The phenology is the study of the timing of recurring natural life cycle events in plants and animals. And basically that is things like the date on which bud burst occurs in trees, when leafing occurs, when flowering occurs, or in birds we might think of the timing of migration, of departure and arrival, and also of the appearance and abundance of insects. So all of these events or phenological phases, or phenophases for short, occur at roughly the same time every year, and they are influenced by temperature. So previously, phenological recording or observations were made by the general public, people who were interested in science. They would go out during last century or the century before, and they would record what they see in the environment and when it occurred. Now we've seen a bit of a resurgence in interest in phenology in the last couple of decades because of global warming. So when average spring temperature is warmer than usual, we would expect these events to occur earlier. Or, as was the case this spring, temperatures were much cooler than normal, so we would expect these events to occur later in the season. So we would expect to see leafing on the tree later or birds arriving later. And that is actually the case, and that's what happened during the spring 2010. So we have data going back to the 1970s of leaf unfolding of beech trees at different sites across Ireland. And in particular, we have one site called at Valentia Observatory. It's part of an international phenological gardens network, and we can see that leaf unfolding is occurring 3 weeks earlier now in 2010 than it did in the 70s. So we can see this influence of warming. So the spring temperature was warming over that period, and the response of the trees was to leaf earlier. And it's the same for lots of different types of trees across the country. Now, if we move on to look at birds and the migration times of sub-Saharan migrant birds to Ireland, we looked at a suite of about 11 different birds, and we could see that of the 11, 9 of them were arriving earlier by about 10 days over a 30-year period from 1969 to 1999. So we're looking for evidence of climate change or global warming from different species, from plants and animals, and we put it all together and we can see that the environment is actually changing. But what are the consequences of, say, bud burst occurring earlier in Ireland? We can see, number one, if the buds burst earlier, the leaves will also come out earlier, so this will mean that the growing period, or the period that the tree is photosynthesizing, will be longer, so that will have consequences for greater timber production, for example. It will also take more carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So we would also see an earlier start to the pollen season, and it would be of greater intensity and last for a longer period. Now, we have bud burst occurring earlier, but a lot of temperate trees growing in this part of the world will require a chilling period in winter, so they need this vernalization period. So if this is not fulfilled, if temperatures are getting warmer, the bud burst will not be able to benefit from higher temperatures, which means that they will not burst earlier. So if the chilling requirement isn't fulfilled, we won't see the increase in timber production, for example. And this could also be true for some of our winter crop species, for example winter wheat. If we don't get the vernalization in winter, the chances are that the yield would be down at the subsequent harvest. So finally, if we see buds bursting earlier in spring, this means that they could be susceptible to late frost. So this could result in economic damage or economic loss to agricultural crops and also to crops such as fruit trees. So now what's left for us to do is to continue to monitor these phenological phases into the future to see what further possible consequences might arise due to global warming.